let's get into our PFF chart on draft capital. And again, I have to say thank you to the legend that is Jonathan H. He's the reason why we are having this discussion. So PFF put together a chart. It's a horizontal bar chart with 3 different metrics, okay? Effective cap space, draft capital, and restructure potential. And it aligns these horizontally to see who has the best means to get better. That's the idea. This was done by PFF. They did a hell of a job. Well, long story short, the 49ers are 7th, okay? They're 7th. Now, what makes it even, there's 2 teams that have the most, and that's the Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders. But if you look at 3 through 8, they're almost identical. They're really, really close. So 3 through 8 is not much. Then there's a big drop, and teams get worse from there. So the Niners are 7th. They're really, really good space. Draft capital-wise, the Niners are 6th. 6th. And if for some reason Josh goes somewhere, it's only going to get better because you're going to get an additional 3rd. And with how close the 49ers are, I think the 49ers would jump to 4th. I really, really do. 4th or 5th, that's where they would be. Just with that one addition of a 3rd-round pick because they're all clumped together. Now, the effective cap space, which is important because there's cap space, then there's effective cap space. And this is where Parag Marante kind of dominates because we roll forward so much every single year. So the 49ers have a whole lot of effective cap space, and they're above average in that, despite having so many Pro Bowlers, all Pros, all that stuff coming back. And again, I know somebody's listening to this going, yeah, but when the Brock Purdy deal gets done, I'm telling you, it's not going to affect it that much. That first year cap space is going to be about $7 million. That second year, about 15. Third, fourth year, then you're into the 20s, 30s, 40s. But you've still got this 3-year window where Brock's contract is not going to hurt. Go look at Jalen Hurts. Still not a giant cap space, even though he's in his 4th year. I think it's like $24 million. Not huge yet. Doesn't get there for another 4 years. Now, the restructure potential is below average, but we have 2 hardcore candidates, Fred Warner and George Kittle. They're not going anywhere. Both coming off all-pro or second team. Both were all-pros. George Kittle got robbed. Period. So now if we look at this just in the NFC West, the 49ers are first in the NFC West at 7th. The Cardinals are 10th. The Rams are 20th. And the Seahawks are dead last in the NFL, 32nd. They have no cap space. They don't have much draft capital. And they don't have restructure opportunities. Like, they can't add. And they're changing their system offensively over to the 49ers scheme. So they're adjusting their scheme. Now, if you want to look at this from a Myles Garrett standpoint, the 49ers are the only team in the top 10 with a chance at the Super Bowl. Listen to the top 10. Patriots, no. Raiders, no. Bears, no. Titans, no. Jets, no. Giants, no. Niners, yes. Jags, no. Panthers, no. Cardinals, no. That's the top 10. Now, you do have the Commanders at 11, Chargers 13, Vikings 14, Cowboys 16, Bengals 17, Steelers 18. Like, yeah, in that you kind of 11 to 20 range, there's a lot. But the Niners are sitting there at 7 with a gigantic. So, again, do I think the Myles Garrett trade's going to happen? I don't. I think it probably won't. It just doesn't happen often. I want it to happen. I did a whole episode on that. Just for the Niners to land them, it's probably not likely. It makes a lot more sense than it should. But, man, whenever I look at these, I'm like, dude, if I'm Myles Garrett and the Browns, call the Niners first. Because you try to trade Myles Garrett to a team that's not going to compete. Yeah, the Patriots might have more draft capital, but good Lord, that roster sucks. Yeah, they got their quarterback. Yeah, I like the head coach. That roster is devoid of talent. They ain't winning anytime soon, especially in that division. Not happening. Right here. Did last season 6-11 not happen contenders? Dude, you have to look at the situations. You have to look at the injuries. You have to look at the close losses in the division. You have to look at the roster and the coaching changes. I think that matters. I think almost every single team in the NFL would consider the Niners to be contenders. I 100% believe that. Yeah, last year sucked, and the coaching was terrible, and the injuries were catastrophic. And yeah, you lost those three. If you switch those 3 division games and, the if and would and should and all that, I get that. But if you don't think the Niners are contenders next year, I completely disagree. They're contenders, period. I don't think that anybody would disagree with that in the NFL, let alone the 49ers. Like, why would Robert Saleh come back here if we're not contenders? Like, you've got your quarterback in Brock Purdy. You've got Kyle Shanahan. You've been in, what's that now? 4 out of 6 NFC championship games, and you're returning most of your studs. Can they stay healthy? That's a question. But yeah, the 49ers 100% are contenders. I think kind of everybody would agree with that. Our next part, Sean C. asked this in an email. He says, you've been talking about the Niners need to add a veteran wide receiver. Sean says, I agree with you. What are your thoughts on Davante Adams? Love Davante Adams. Probably one of my favorite, how do I say this, wide receivers of this generation. Is that an appropriate thing to say? I think Davante Adams in his prime was unreal. The route running, the hands, the toughness, just taking over games, all those different things, just unbelievable. But I don't think that he's that anymore. Do I still think that he's a great wide receiver? Yes. Will he be a cap casualty for the Jets? Probably. They're going to go full rebuild, I think. Having said that, could you get him for cheap? If you could get Davante Adams on like a 1-year, $5 million deal, yes. Do I think he would sign with us? I do not. Remember, has to make sense for the player and the team. Why would Davante Adams come here? He's not going to be the number 1 wide receiver over a healthy Brandon Ayuk at this stage in his career. Now, is Brandon Ayuk going to be healthy? Ooh, I don't know. You call him and you say, now he's still under contract. You're not trading for him. But if they cut him, yes, I would love him to come here. But he would be the number 1 wide receiver on 20-plus teams. Here, he would be the number 1 wide receiver, but we're a run-heavy team. And we have Brandon Ayuk, who's making, 5 times more money than he will be if he is cut and signs a cheap deal. I don't know. And on top of that, Davante Adams has been a locker room issue the past 2 teams he's been on, the Raiders and the Jets. But I don't want to hold that too much on him. I would love Davante Adams. I would love Davante Adams on this team. Having said that, I don't see it likely, but I would love it. I just don't see why Davante Adams go to a run-heavy team that doesn't throw the ball deep very often. Well, that changed this past year, so you got to preface that. But I think he would much rather go to another team where he would be the number 1 personally. But there's so many veteran wide receivers available. In why Niners? I'd rather go with Hopkins. Yes. DeAndre Hopkins, that would make perfect sense here. Christian Kirk, Chris Olave is going to cost a lot of money. Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Chris Olave, but I doubt we could get him. He's going to be very, very expensive. Listen to these veteran wide receivers that are available that I do think are smart. Now, again, you have to remember, the 49ers have Ayuk for $30 million a year. You way overpaid for that guy. He has to be the number 1. You've got Debo, who that contract says you're probably not going to be able to trade him this year. Debo will be around. You spent a first-round pick on Ricky Pearsall, who came out and showed out that he belongs. And you got Jacob Cowan. You have 2 young pups that you still are trying to figure out how to get them involved. And Juwan Jennings, who I think is the best of the bunch. I don't agree with Terrell Owens on really anything. But if you saw the clip, Terrell Owens came out and said, man, Juwan Jennings played like a $30 million wide receiver. He should have been the guy that got paid. I was saying that from the beginning. I was saying it before he went off. So, yeah, you have 5. The 49ers sometimes keep 6, sometimes 5. You don't need to waste a draft pick, especially one in the first, second, third rounds on a wide receiver. You didn't need to do it last year either, but you did. That's why I want to vet. Listen to these veteran wide receivers that are available that fit what we do. Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton would be at the top of my list. I think that he is a damn good wide receiver who has never played with a capable quarterback or a good, I don't want to say good head coach, good offensive mind. I know Dayball is respected by a lot, but I'm sorry, man. What that Giants team has done, I don't think they're very good. I think Darius Slayton's a damn good wide receiver. Amari Cooper, I will never forget when a second-round pick and Amari Cooper were on the table for Brandon Ayuk. I would have drove him to the airport. I'm glad Ayuk's with us. We overpaid, but man, that second-round pick I said would be a top 40, top 50 pick. It's a 33rd overall pick, and you would have saved all that money. And Amari Cooper's not that far off. He's not as good as Ayuk. He's not, but he's still pretty freaking solid. Anyway, I'd be fine with Amari Cooper. DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Josh Palmer, Tyler Boyd, Rondale Moore, Zay Jones, Tim Patrick, Noah Brown, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Mac Hollins, KJ Osborne, Diami Brown, Tylan Wallace. Like, there are so many veteran wide receivers. I don't want another young pup that's going to take time to learn one of the most complex wide receiver schemes in the NFL. There are guys out there. There are all guys out there.